We're Daniel and Megan James. We met in December of 1999 at Gospel Light Baptist Church. I guess it was probably about three years maybe later. We got engaged at Gospel Light Baptist Church, and then June 12, 2004, we got married at Gospel Light Baptist Church. In 2006, I started the master's degree program, and the goal was, I think, when that was done, was when we were going to start our family around 2008. I had just confidence that things were going to work naturally, the way they do for most people. Really, when she started telling me something's not right. Something's not right. You know, it's been a year going on a year and a half almost, and we should be pregnant by now. In December, when she started telling me there was a problem,
you were so adamant.
I was refusing. I said, I'm not going to no doctor. And my thinking was, and I know the great physician, so I'm going to go to him. I prayed and asked him, had a conversation with him, and he told me, he said, you know, I'm in the middle of this, but there's still some things you've not done. And I said, what in the world have I not done? I have done everything that I can possibly do. But we had in our floor plan drawn up, you know, for a nursery. But that room was empty. And so I didn't see anything else to do other than to go buy some furniture. That was the last thing I hadn't done. And it wasn't naming it and claiming it. I was acting upon what God was telling me in my spirit to do. If I'm going to be a father, I need to prepare to be a father. I went to the store and picked it up and brought it home. And when I started bringing them boxes in, what'd you say?
Are you out of your mind?
It was the first thing you said. You said,
"This is crazy.
What have you bought? Why did you buy this?"
Why did you buy it?
And I said, I'm going to be a father. And she said, you must know something I don't know. And I said, I suppose I do. I unboxed that stuff and I put it together. It was probably 1 o'clock in the morning when I got it done, but I just couldn't go to sleep until it was done. I told God, I said, I've done what you said. And I've gone as far as I can go. The rest is your problem to deal with. And I remember that furniture sitting in that room. We'd have people over the house, and she would shut the door.
I would always close the door
and lock it.
That way nobody could go in and say, well, what's this for? And then start asking questions.
She don't want people asking questions.
Because I didn't want to go through the pain of telling them, no, we're not pregnant. No, we're not bringing a baby home right now.
And it was in March of 2011. We went to the fertility doctor, and they ran tests on Megan and on myself, and everything came back normal. After 6 months of these different types of treatments, doctors again were scratching their head and said, we are out of solutions. At that point, I went back to God again. I said, what else you got? There's got to be some way. If I'm going to be a father, then again, it's back in, the ball is in your court. It's in your hands. I'm leaving it there. I'm not touching the ball again. And it was in 2012. I remember one morning we were getting ready for work, and Megan said, I'm nervous about today at work. And she said, we've got a new therapist starting.
We had a great therapist team. So when somebody new comes in, you're always nervous anywhere when you're working. But it turned out to be a great thing because she was a foster parent, and she had talked to me about being, hey, why don't you give this a try?
And you said, yeah, you've got to take these classes, and she knew everything. I
looked it up that afternoon because I'm that type of person. If I find something out, I want to research it and see what all we have to do.
Yep.
That way, because I knew he would be asking information. And I had it all laid out. I said MAP classes, which is what they're called, foster classes. There was the information meeting in the summer.
Well, what you said was, here's the dates and times of the classes.
Yes.
And you said they've got spots open.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, after you answered all my questions, I said, well, sign us up. And you said, I already have.
Yeah.
I said, well, that's great. Maybe this is what God has for us, right?
Right.
I mean, we can be foster parents, and we can be, I can be a foster dad to maybe 100 kids. We were committed just to being foster parents, but going through those classes, you have to fill out additional paperwork and go through different what do you call it? Home studies and things.
Home studies, background checks, everything.
To get the foster license and also an adoption license. And so we said we're going to do both. We had scheduled already for March of the next year through close to the end of March to go to Germany with Lomax and Linda. This would be a good time to take one last trip before kids come into the picture. We put all the paperwork in the mail before we left, and they
told us it could take a while. I think up to 3 months.
I thought we said 6.
Maybe 6. We just knew it was going to be longer than we were going to be in Germany for.
We got an email.
It was I think it was the beginning of March.
Yeah,
saying that we were approved.
I guess it was probably on maybe March the 16th or something like that.
Yeah.
We get another email and says, would you be it was really cryptic, would you be interested in a newborn? But we thought it was a foster situation.
Yes.
Because they never said anything different, and we'd already been beat up. You're never going to be able to adopt. They said, when you get back, we want to schedule a meeting for you to come in and talk to us.
When we walk in there, we have our social worker, and she introduces, after she talks a little bit, she introduces an adoption social worker.
Yeah.
And we both were looking at each other like, what's going on? If we're accepting a foster placement, why is the adoption worker in here?
The lady starts talking and says, this baby Isaiah that we're talking about, this is an adoption situation. And the lady said, I have been here in DSS for 20 plus years. And she said, I've never seen anything like this before. Everything that they tried at DSS to talk this couple into, they refused. And they walked away without giving him a name. And so that's where the social worker said we had to put something on his papers. And so we wanted to give him a Bible name. And we gave him on his papers here Isaiah, but he did not have a birth certificate with an official name. So the lady came back to the hospital, and then the social worker said the nurses gave her a difficult time and said, you need to give that boy a name.
Right.
And she said, Daniel. And that's when I almost fell out of my chair.
Yes. I was already crying.
Well, how in the world did she name him Daniel? Where did she come up with that? And that's the birth father's middle name. What are the chances of that happening? So we went, that was on a Monday.
And our question was, when can we go see him?
Yeah.
We want to see him as soon as possible, obviously, so we can start building that bond and just seeing.
And they said tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And we went that same night. Yeah, we got to see him and hold him.
Yes.
But we couldn't bring him home yet because
72 hours later.
they had to do. There was some paperwork. Once we agreed and signed stuff, then they had to go through the judges and stuff to get things stamped.
Yeah.
And then we could bring him home, which was ended up being Thursday
Afternoon.
It happened so fast.
It was a whirlwind.
It was.
But it was a wonderful whirlwind to be in.
It was. It was. To me, it was a clear answer of prayer. When they told me he had my name.
Yeah.
When God tells you he's going to do something, he doesn't necessarily always tell you how he's going to do it. If he had answered my first prayer the way that I thought he was going to, my wife would have gotten pregnant in 2010. In the end of 2010 or early 2011, she would have gotten pregnant. And we wouldn't be filming this video because you can explain that. If we had went through with the in vitro fertilization or any of that, fertility stuff had worked, you could scientifically explain that. But in this way, there's no choice. There's no explanation. You cannot convince me that there could be this many coincidences that stack up on themselves to equal this outcome. The probability of it is impossible. It's God. But he does things that are impossible for you and I to do. And the way he's worked this out, being able to tell this story and give the testimony, it's his way. And it's a way that nobody can look at me or look at my wife and say, they did this. They did it. We didn't do anything. God put every single piece of it together. We travailed on there, a family of 3.
And we're at peace with it.
But we did foster several. And our license was good for, I think, 3 years. And you either have to renew it or it would just naturally expire. And we did. We let it expire. Around November of 2016, I asked Graydon, what do you want for Christmas? And he said, Daddy, I want a puppy dog. And I said, that's fantastic, because I can handle that. It was maybe 2 or 3 weeks before Christmas.
Yeah.
He said, Daddy, I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind. He said, I do not want a dog for Christmas. And I said, what in the world could you possibly want that's better than a dog? He said, I want a brother. He said, he was dead set on it. He wanted a brother. And that's hard to argue with, for a boy to want a brother. Before you could understand, we've been telling you your story about how you were adopted. Mom and Daddy can't have kids. The only thing we can do is ask God. We'll scratch the dog, and we're going to pray for a brother. And he did. But I felt confident that I could go back to the Lord and ask again, and he would give me an answer one way or the other. Prayed again, just like I did before. And I had peace. I just had peace about it. I didn't pray about it no more. I prayed one time. Come May 2017. It's about 5.5 months later or so. There was a girl who got in contact with me that I've known my whole life. She told me, she said, me and my dad were talking, and my dad told me that you had adopted before. I told her the story about Graydon, and she said, well, would you be interested in adopting again? I said, absolutely. And she said, well, I'm pregnant, and I need somebody to adopt this baby. And I said, well, we'll take him. She said, well, I don't know if it's a boy or girl. I've had no prenatal care. And I said, I'm quite certain that it's a boy. The birth mother called me back. Now, I don't know. It seemed like maybe an hour later. And she said, we got an appointment, for this date and time. And we drove back to come back and pick birth mother up the next morning and take to that appointment. And that's when we found out definitively that
Graydon's prayers were answered.
It was a boy, and he was perfectly healthy. The birth mother said, well, y'all are going to have to name him. He's your baby, so y'all have to give him the name. And I said, we've got it narrowed down. It's either going to be Weston Lee. And she said, well, I like that. I like Weston Lee a lot. She said, what's the other one? I said, Weston Gray is the second one. How did you know about Gray? And I said, well, Gray's my middle name. She said, I didn't know that. And I said, yeah, Gray's my middle name. And she said, well, that's the birth father's middle name too. He was born on August the 4th. Brought him home in that same car that I bought back in 2006. I don't give up on a car just because it's got some miles on it. And put him in that crib, the same one that Graydon was in, that I bought back in 2010. And one thing that I tell people, God is the supply to your need. Anytime God tells you to do something, you just have to do it, and trust that He has your best interest at heart, whether you understand it or not. And again, don't put Him in a box thinking He can only do something a certain way. He can do things exceedingly above what we're able to ask or think.
From a lady's standpoint, it has taught me just to fully lay any burden you have at His feet, from going through the fertility treatments, the pain, the heartache that you endure, wanting to have or carry a baby. But I told Daniel several times I would go through that pain so many more times if it still means that we have the story that God's written for us through Graydon and Weston, because they were His plan, and they were by far the best plan, the perfect plan for us. And God has just been so good and so faithful every time, and He has taught us so many lessons throughout it. But just fully relying on Him and fully laying every burden, anything at His feet each day. I'm not saying it was a breeze, because it wasn't. There were days that were struggles. There were days that I was in tears, and Daniel knows, from all the treatments and everything. But I think, throughout that whole thing, God was teaching me, hey, you can't do it in your own strength. It's only through my strength. And those boys are by far the greatest blessings in our lives.